Hello there and welcome back to my bench. And on my bench today we have an R A60 amplifier made in Cambridge in the UK in approximately 1980, I think. And this was very kindly sent to me by one of my subscribers, who's called Mike, better known to many of you as Racing Demon, and he sent me an email saying he had a few of these, and this particular one he'd recapped completely the whole unit, and after doing that it didn't work anymore, so I thought it would make a nice little project and a video for me to do. And sadly it didn't survive the journey very well. It's got a wooden top to it and it's completely now in 3 pieces. So obviously parcel force have kicked it around a few times before it got here, although I must say it was very well packed, so I don't know how they managed to damage it so badly, but really it's only glued together. The side piece is just glued onto the top piece, so it isn't very substantial. I think I can probably fix it, but I don't think just gluing it's going to be the answer, particularly if I have to post it again. I think I'm going to have to put some nails through it to support it and make it more substantial. So anyway, we'll forget the lid for the time being, put that to one side, and have a look inside it. And I hope I don't offend Mike or anybody else, but looking inside this amplifier that was built in, when was it built? 28th of the 10th 1980, it says on the label. Well, I must say I'm not overly impressed with the build quality, for want of a better word. When I think of what was coming out of Japan around the late 70s, early 80s, units like amplifiers like Pioneers, Sansui, Hitachi, whatever, they really were producing some really excellent quality equipment. I owned a few of the silver Pioneers from that era, and they were beautifully made, really high quality, and they worked very well. This, I would say, is not in the same league, but it's just my opinion, just looking at it. And I have turned it on, and I will turn it on in a minute. What else can I say about it? The other thing I don't particularly like about it, if I turn it round, I don't know if I can turn it around with all these wires connected, it's got horrible DIN sockets on it. I thought they went out in about 1972 or something like that, but I cannot imagine why you would have anything with DIN sockets on it in the early 80s, but it is what it is. And Mike again was very kind enough to send me some adapter cables to phono, which is very kind of him, and also some spare fuses, although hoping I won't need spare fuses. And actually sent me 2 of these cables, which is really good of him. And also the option he said was to send me some tip 3055s, which are in the outputs, but I didn't take him up on that offer because I've already checked them anyway, they're fine. So that isn't the problem with this. So I'm going to turn it on in a minute and we'll see what it does. Okay, well, I've got a 1 volt, 1 kilohertz peak to peak, whatever, signal going in, and I'm going in on the tuner input for no particular reason. I could have gone in the auxiliary tape, whatever. Let's just turn the volume up, and that's maximum volume, and it sounds very distorted and weak and not good at all. So obviously it's got a problem, and since playing around with this thing I've checked on this point here, which is coming off the switch bank for the input selection. Now normally this is the volume control. Normally I would have expected that to be at the far end of this circuit, because this is basically the preamplifier and tone control. Seems a strange place to put the volume control, but whatever, it's a 100k log pot. So if I take my scope probe and go over to the scope, and if I go to the top of the volume, which is that point there, yeah, that's your signal coming in, which looks good. Can't see what it's reading for voltage, but it looks good to me. But if I go on to the wiper of the pot, right, that's the wiper, and I turn it all the way up, absolutely nothing. So that, in theory, that wiper is connected now to the top of the pot, and yet on that other connection I'm still getting full signal, so that's a bit of a mystery. So could it be a faulty pot on both channels? I can't get to the other connections on the pot because it's down underneath there, but it would seem like it's got the same problem on there. So it might be a good idea to get the board out. That's the other thing I don't like about this. On most Japanese amplifiers they'd have a panel underneath which you could remove, then you could get access to the components. With this amplifier you've got to basically undo everything, including the transistors off the heatsink, which is slightly annoying. But I think before I take the board out I'll do some other checks around the circuit. Okay, I've been doing some more poking around in this thing and checking the power supplies, and we've got, that's your minus 35 volts, and that'll be plus 35 volts, so that's absolutely fine. But if we look at the circuit diagram, we've got basically a regulator circuit which takes the high voltage, 35 volts, and produces 14 volts positive and negative for all the rest of the lower voltage parts of the circuit, like the preamplified tone controls, whatever. So this is the negative area that produces the negative voltage, and test point 4 is 14 volts, and I can't see test point 4, but I'm pretty sure it's okay. If I go across this capacitor I get 15 volts, and that's this point here, because it's got a 15 volt Zener, and So I'm pretty sure the negative side's alright anyway. But the positive regulator is around this area, and looking up at this, there's a 220 ohm between the plus 35, and I know I've got horrible bands on the screen, but whatever, this is a 220 and I should have 3 volts across it, so I've got 35 volts. That's the 220 there. On one side I've got 35 volts, on the other side I've only got 6 volts, and I should have a hell of a lot more than that. I should have about 32ish, 32 on that side. And what else we got? We got 15 volt Zener, and that is down here. I've only got 7 volts on that Zener. So what does that mean? Well, I'm going to check this resistor. So I'll turn the power off, check the 220, and I can find right, let's check the 220. What does that mean? Open circuit. That 220 ohms open circuit. Fine. Why is it open circuit? That's what I'd like to know. So obviously I had too much current going through it. Does that mean there's a short circuit further down the line? Right, well, circuit diagram. We've got 2 transistors, regulator transistors, ZTX653, which I looked up earlier, and they are quite special transistors, because even though they're tiny, they've got 2 amp current rating, and I haven't got anything like that, but I suspect they might be blown up. So if I go to diode mode, go on the base of that one. Well, it's open that way, and it's open that way. Base to collector is open and open. This one's a bit harder to get to. That one doesn't look too bad, 0.67. And trying to see where the collector goes on that one. Goes to 56k. Can't see the 56k. So I can't really get to the collector. But I definitely think this one is dead. So I haven't got any transistors like that. Not that I know of anyway. So I'm going to look on eBay and see how much they cost and if I can still get them. And I think really I will get this board out. Then I can check those properly. So that's what I'll do next. So I've got the board out of its case, and these 2 transistors I suspected were faulty. They're not. They're both fine, and they're not even ZTXs. ZTX whatever. They're not. ZTX653s, they're BFR39s, which is a bit of an odd transistor. BFRs I normally associate with high frequency transistors, but whatever. As far as I can see, they're fine, those transistors. So maybe it's just a 220 that's gone high, and if I stick a 220 in there, maybe it'll work, but maybe it'll just burn up again. So that's what I think I'll do. But when now I've got it out of the case and disconnected from its transformer, I think I can quite happily run it with plus or minus 30 off my power supply, which is a good way to test something when you haven't got the mains available, or you don't want to put unlimited amounts of current for it, because I can current limit the power supply obviously. So I think I'll do next is change that 220 and then wire it up and see what happens. Okay, resistor replaced. 220 ohms was completely open circuit, burnt out, whatever. So now I've got it wired up again, and this time of course I'm not using the main power supply transformer. I've got 30 volts on the positive, that's 0 volts, and that's minus 30 volts. If you look at the power supply up there, which is turned off, 30 plus 30 and current limiting set to 500 milliamps. So what will happen when I turn it on? Will it smoke another resistor? Let's try it. Okay, it's only drawing 85 milliamps, 88 on the other channel. Sounds a bit low to me, but we shall see. Sounds like the bias isn't set right. I would have expected it to draw more than that, maybe. So back to the circuit. Yeah, I think it's time to put a signal into it. So signal generator is connected up, scope is all ready. Turn the signal on. Look to the scope. Current's the same, hasn't changed. Scope probe. Okay, one channel, nothing. Okay, which is the volume? No signal. Oh no, I turned the generator off instead of on. Forget that. Right, generator's on. It's drawing slightly more current, 125 milliamps. Whoa, wow, what's going on? Lots of signal. It's really clipping. Okay, turn the volume down. That's one channel. That's the other channel, which has got a slight bit of clipping. Maybe adjusting the balance. I think I need to get the knobs on the balance control so I know where the hell I am. Okay, seems to be a slight imbalance. That's the changing the balance knob, which is also dodgy. A dodgy balance knob. So I'm getting slightly more out of one channel than the other. I wonder why I'm getting that. Okay. Just out of interest. Let's check the voltage from the regulator, which I've just fixed, which should be 14 volts. So there's actually two 14 volt outputs, and they are on the emitters of these two. So let's get on one emitter. .7 so it should be 14, just a little bit down. And that's the other regulator, is also the same. So what's on the Zener diode? 15 volt Zener diode is reading 14.3. That would account for why it was, I'm not getting quite 14 coming out. So there's a 2.7k driving the Zener diode, biasing the Zener diode. I'm just going to try and check that. So nothing wrong with the resistor biasing the Zener, so the Zener must be low in voltage slightly. But I don't think 0.3 volts is going to make a hell of a lot of difference on that positive rail. I'm still getting a difference between the two outputs. Let's turn it right up. I'll turn it halfway down. And yeah, there's still difference between the two channels. So can't account for that at the moment. I'll get back to you. Okay, as you can see, we got an imbalance with the balance set in the middle between the two channels. But balance control's a bit dodgy as well. But it's all down to the pot, in the volume pot. I traced the circuit all the way through, the input circuit, right from back here, zoom out, and there was always more on one channel than on the other channel, all the way through this, what is the tone control and preamp circuit. Right to the beginning, there was actually more signal on one channel right off the volume pot. So it's basically a pot problem. I measured the resistance, and I think in the middle of the track one was reading 10k, the other was reading about 9 point something k. So don't know what to do about that. I don't think I'm going to put a new pot in it. Okay, you can compensate for it with the balance, but it's not ideal. I could even try paralleling resistor up on one of the pots to bring it in line with the other one, but that would only be accurate at one point in the pot travel. I might try doing that. Okay, well, half an hour nearly later, been paralleling resistors on the volume control. Now I think I've got it fairly well matched with the balance right in the centre. As you can see, those two channels are tracking quite nicely. There's still a bit of inconsistency, but I'm never going to get a new volume control that's going to go in that position, because it looks like a special one. That's the best I'm going to do with it, so I'm going to put it back in its box now and get the bias set up, because I don't think it's drawing enough current. Yeah, quiescent current, it's really quite low. But turn the volume down. Quiescent current's 83 milliamps. That's not really enough, I don't think. Okay, I'm going to do the bias adjustment. As you see, it's back in its box. And they have a rather curious way in the service manual of telling you to do it. They tell you to take out the DC fuses. Stick a 15 ohm resistor across there and measure whatever across the resistor. I don't like that idea, because it's going to drop the voltage anyway. But also, the way I'm going to do it, when I can find the right piece of paper, is, if we look on, this is the power output stage, there's 0.2 ohm resistors there, and they're saying 8 millivolts across that. I mean, that'd be the normal way to do a bias adjustment across those emitter resistors. So you want 8 millivolts, and that sounds reasonable. That comes out at 36 milliamps bias current. So that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, it's all set up. It's been on for a while, and I'm going across the on the right channel at the moment. And I got up to my meter. That I'll have to do. So I'm only getting 5 millivolts at the moment. So I'm going to tweak up this bias pot to get too high 8, and of course this is going to change as the outputs warm up. It's really difficult with a single turn pot. It's almost impossible. 8 millivolts, 7.9, 8.1, that's good enough, I think. It's drifting up now, of course, as the so I have to tweak it down a bit. Just leave it at 7.8 and see if it drifts up. And it will drift up, as they always do. It's fairly steady. The heatsink is absolutely cold. Still drifting slightly. Okay, well I think that may be good enough. Maybe tweak it a bit down a bit. It's really so difficult and so critical. This is where you need a 10 turn pot, or even a 15 turn pot, whatever. Right, I'm going to leave it at that. That seems fairly steady now. I won't show you the other channel because you've seen how I've done it anyway. Okay, it's all wired up, 1 kHz input, dummy load, 2 8-ohm dummy loads on each channel, and now we do a power measurement. First of all, go over to the scope and turn it up, and I've also got the audio analyzer set to read watts into 8 ohms. There's a slight disparity between the two outputs. Okay, that's clipping, or starting to go unstable, and it's reading 38 watts. Okay, turn it down again, don't want to run it like that. But again, I've noticed with this thing, I think the heatsink is fairly small. This thing, I believe, is supposed to produce 40 watts, and I'd say that's a pretty small heatsink for a 40 watt amplifier, and it's getting fairly warm in just that short time. So what should we do now? We'll do a THD test. So I'll just turn it up, and I'll set it to, I don't know, let's set it to 10 watts. 10 watts. Okay, up to the audio analyzer, and we're reading 10 watts. We'll go back into AC level. That's giving the voltage RMS, and where's TH distortion? Yeah, distortion. 0.2% distortion. I suppose it's reasonable. Could turn it down a bit. It goes down to 0.09. Turn it right up. Get it up to near clipping, and still 0.2. Okay, well, 0.2 is reasonable. Turn it right down, 0.08, fine. Now, next to do, I think, is frequency response test. Okay, that's the other channel done. 8 millivolts, drifting around a bit. That's good enough for me. What do I do with it now? Could run some tests on it, I suppose. Okay, frequency response test, 1 kHz at the moment, and that's the AC level RMS. So I go into ratio and then logarithmic, So that's your reference, 0. Now go down 20 Hertz. 20 Hertz. Minus 3 dB at 20 Hertz. 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 90, 100 Hertz. Near enough flat there. 200. And of course I've got all the bass and trebles centered, so they shouldn't affect it. 500, 6, 7, 8, 9, back to 1K, 2K, minus 2, yeah, okay, 4K, minus half a dB, 5K, 6K, 7K, 8, 9, 10K, 0.7 dB down. Trouble with these bass and treble controls, it's hard to center them very accurately, but anyway, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20K is 0.8 dB down. Okay, well it's not as flat as some amplifiers I've seen, but it is fairly flat. It's within a dB across 20 Hertz, 20, well, was it down at 20 Hertz? I think it was quite down at 20 Hertz, wasn't it? But who listens to 20 Hertz anyway? So it's, yeah, it's doing alright. It's a decent enough amplifier, I think. And I'm running at 10 watts output at the moment, and the heat sinking is getting really quite hot, so I'm going to abandon that. That's done, that test is done. And there it is. So, it's all finished, all working electrically. Now I've got to do the woodwork, which I'm not looking forward to, because I'm not much of a woodwork person. And I'm not sure if I've got any PVA glue, but that'll be tomorrow's project, so I've had enough of it for one day. So here it all is, back together. Wooden case has been repaired as best I can. And as usual with things like this, it didn't come out absolutely perfect. You can see the nails where I put in to hold it in place. It's also been glued, and I've done the same at the other side. But it's the best I think I can do. I've still got to put a bit more paint on these nails so they don't show up. But anyway, I think what I'll do now is take it into the lounge and give it a test. Okay, here we are in the lounge. Cat's asleep in the windowsill. Going to upset him in a minute when I turn it on. Never mind. And there it is, sitting on top of my Celestion, one of my Celestion Ditton 44s. And I've got it connected up into this amplifier here, which has been modified to have a preamp output. So I want to set my level controls to central, my bass and treble, because that will affect it. And okay, turn the CD on.
It's a difficult thing, but you can be certain. You don't know everything. Now is a time of waiting. No clear vision in your crystal ball. Don't wait to wind up. Just wait for the call. Worry never offer a thing. Despair nothing. Worry never offer a thing. No. Despair nothing. Worry never offer a thing. Not a thing now, despair nothing. Worry never offer a thing.
Okay, I think it's enough of that. Sounds very good to me. Quite impressed with that. That's a bit of copyright free music, which is done by a local band. And I'm quite impressed with that. It sounds like it's got plenty of power. Bass and treble work fine. The balance works fine. The only thing I haven't done is I haven't tested it on a record player. I shan't be doing that today. So I shall use this amp for a bit just to see how it sounds, but it sounds very good. So I'm quite pleased with the result, and I hope Mike, Racing Demon, likes the video on his amps. So thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.